Dogman took the world by storm, and the question that won't go away is, will there be a Dogman 2? And if there is, what will it be about? The comics are packed with awesome stuff, so here's what might happen in the next movies. The Dogman movie adapted almost 3 whole books, and yet we only got one of the many main villains that terrorize the city. But did you know that Flippy isn't even close to being the most beloved villain among fans? That title belongs to Piggy the Pig and his gang of fleas, who first appear in the 5th book, Lord of the Fleas. Piggy is a character that absolutely has to appear in the next movie because his story is completely connected to Petey the Cat's storyline. After all, what Piggy did to him in the past is essential to explaining why he became the villain he is today. And that piece of information is way too important for his redemption story. So get your cloning machines ready, subscribe to the channel, and let's dive into 10 amazing things that will happen in the future of Dogman. Another episode of Zigzag starts now. Still talking about the book where Piggy appears, this is yet another reason why the most rotten pig in the world cannot be left out of the next movie, because the epic battle between Petey and Piggy is fought using giant robots. Dude, there's nothing cooler than that. And seeing it in the form of high-quality animation like DreamWorks would be something I would literally pay to watch. In the first movie, we had the living buildings with little Petey taking them down inside a small robot. So imagine that scene as just a taste of what's coming. Just talking about it already gets me hyped. There's no way to talk about Dogman without mentioning the pop culture references that author Dave Pilkey loves to include in his comics. And man, there are a lot. In the first movie, we already got some major references like RoboCop and Die Hard, but in the comics, things are much more elaborate and layered, like an ogre or an onion. Right in the first Dogman book, we already have a huge reference and proof that Dave Pilkey is just as much of a nerd as we are. Chapter 4 of the first book is titled Weenie Wars, The Franks Awakens, and that's a direct reference to none other than Star Wars, The Force Awakens. On top of that, the chapter's cover with Dogman holding up a bone is another Star Wars reference, specifically to the poster of A New Hope, the very first movie in the franchise. And that's just one reference in the first book. There are so many others that they'd need a whole separate video to cover. As we've mentioned many times here on the channel, the heart of the story is Petey the Cat. At first, he's introduced as the biggest villain in the story, but along the way, we see that he's just a deeply traumatized and hurt guy, because everything that happened in his childhood was basically designed to crush his kindness and hope. Seriously, the guy was betrayed by his scout friends, abandoned by his father, dumped in a stinky orphanage. There was no way he wouldn't grow up full of rage. And just like we saw in the movie, where little Petey meets his grandfather and brings him home, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Crud's involvement in the story. He's going to show up again and cause trouble multiple times. And I can't wait, because just like Piggy and the Fleas, this is also essential for Petey's emotional development. Did you also love seeing this villainous cat's redemption journey? Then show your love for him by writing #PT in the comments. One of my favorite arcs in the comics is the Weenie Wars, which we already talked about a little in this video, but I just have to bring it up again. It's arguable that the biggest problem in this city isn't the villains or the giant robots constantly fighting in the streets, but actually the living spray, which is practically the main cause of all the problems in these stories. It's thanks to this spray that Flippy came back to life, that the buildings in the first movie came alive, and it's also because of this spray that the main villain of this chapter exists, because it's a hot dog that Petey used the spray on to help him escape from jail. The hot dog gets so sad and angry that Petey doesn't want to be his friend that he uses the spray to bring an army of furious hot dogs to life. But nobody in the city cares because they're tiny and everyone thinks they're super cute. This arc is hilarious and could easily be a small part of the next movie. Speaking of the living spray, here it is again. When Petey accidentally creates a clone of himself by drawing himself on a poster board and pretending to get crushed by a piece of furniture to escape the cat prison while the guard is distracted. What happens next is that the guards are complete idiots and actually think Petey died, so they use the spray on the paper Petey to bring him back to life, not realizing they were creating a second villainous cat. But here's the thing. The original, Petey is already going through his redemption arc, so he's not that bad anymore. But this paper Petey is still pure evil, so evil that he even revives a dinosaur skeleton in a museum. Dude, you're not gonna believe this. Because I also didn't believe it when I was reading the comic. There's a chapter, since we just talked about dumb people in the last section, where the entire world gets dumb because Petey erases all the words from every book in existence. And there's a very specific joke involving some cops that made me think, Dave, my guy, chill out a little. People get so stupid, like beyond stupid, to the point where they pick up poop, forget what they're holding, and then high-five each other with it, making it explode everywhere. I highly doubt they'll adapt this scene into the next movie, but I would love to see people's reactions in the theater. And you? Would you find it funny or just completely gross? Probably a little bit of both, right? I'd love to see this in the movie. And if you also want to know everything about Dogman, follow the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. One of the funniest and most genuinely interesting arcs in Dogman is the one where Dogman is hired to be the bodyguard for the lead actress in the movie adaptation of his own story. That's right. Did you know that in the Dogman comics, they already made a Dogman movie? Now just imagine the layers of jokes they could pull off in a Dogman movie about a Dogman movie while we're watching a movie about a movie being made. Oh my god, I think I just confused myself. But this story is hilarious because the actress Dogman has to protect makes his job way harder. And there are even more awesome pop culture references, like this spoof of Samuel L. Jackson in Snakes on a Plane. Oh, and let's not forget that the production company responsible for the movie is called Gassy Behemoth. There's just no way not to love that. Seriously. Still focusing on the movie about a movie story, this arc is also deeply connected to the main plot of Petey and his transition from being a terrible dad and a full-blown villain to becoming a loving father and a celebrated hero. But the biggest thing, it's in this movie actress storyline that the dynamic duo of Dogman and Lil Petey is born, a direct pop culture reference, since it's basically a parody of Batman and Robin. In this story, Petey is dead set on becoming a supervillain, complete with armor and everything, while trying to teach his son the ways of evil so he can be his sidekick. But, of course, things definitely don't go as planned, and he ends up teaming up with Dogman in a heroic duo instead. And man, if we're really talking about all the incredible things that could happen in the next movies, there's one that absolutely needs to appear. Not only should it be in the film, but they have the perfect chance to expand on it beyond the comics. To really hit us emotionally and make everyone cry in the theater. I'm talking about Petey's mom. After going through his full redemption, Petey gives an exclusive interview to Sarah Haytoff to share his story. And that's when he talks about Grace, his mother, for the very first time. And this is where we finally learn where Petey's kindness comes from, and how his mom was the key to bringing him back to being the good-hearted cat he had always been inside. Dude, this would be so emotional that I think I have to end the video right here because I can't handle this.